I'm Pamela Pearson, and I am a political activist in Austin, Texas. Progress Texas, I discovered when I came back here about 8 years ago, is the clearest, most concise voice for progressives in Texas, and it's just the kind of clarity and leadership that we need in the media center, which is one of the fundamentals that Dems need to develop in this state. And I love that Progress Texas is such a big part of it.
Thanks, Pamela. It's Thursday, January 29th, 2026, and this is the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch, rapid response on the breaking news stories Texas progressives need to know. I'm Chris Mosier. Texas Republicans would have you believe that the lives of our children are their top priority. Draconian crackdowns on the reproductive choices of women are frequently characterized in this way, which makes a few things, including our foster care system, which is equal parts Orwell and Dickens, and our tendency to strangle and starve our public schools, a bit difficult to understand. But as of late, the most glaring example of the hypocrisy of Texas Republicans, MAGA, and conservatives when it comes to caring for kids is the horrifying role Texas is now playing in the trafficking and warehousing of immigrant children by ICE. Marco Bittenell at Fox 7 News in Austin says Texas Democratic House of Reps Joaquin Castro and Jasmine Crockett visited that ICE detention center at Dilley, Texas yesterday, and afterwards at a rally at Progresso Hall in West San Antonio last night. Congressman Castro reported that during a visit with the father of 5-year-old Liam Conejo Ramos, snatched from Minneapolis and spirited quickly to Texas by ICE last week, the boy slept in his dad's arms the entire time, his father telling Castro that, quote, he's been sleeping most of the day because he's been depressed. He's not eating well. He misses his mom and his classmates in his school. We met people who had not gotten their medicine on time, kids who had lost weight because they hadn't been eating the food, people who are depressed dealing with the trauma of Dilley, unquote. Congressman Greg Casar joined that rally in San Antonio as well, demanding Liam's release and summoning Americans to continue the building resistance to the human tragedy that Donald Trump and ICE are perpetrating before our very eyes. Casar said, quote, our job is to rally through that fear, march through that darkness, to shout through the silence, to fight day in and day out again and again and again and again, unquote. Adam McCormick is a professor of social work at St. Edward's University in Austin. He has an op-ed out in the Austin American-Statesman in which he argues that after a full professional life working with kids and families marked by trauma, he can't see, quote, the detention of children and mothers as anything other than deeply humane, unquote, continuing that children organizing protests inside the Dilley Immigration Center, as we've seen this week, is a clear signal that their environment has become intolerable. Detention centers are inherently traumatic spaces defined by surveillance and restriction, causing children to experience developmental regression, chronic anxiety, and emotional dysregulation. For youth who have already fled violence, these conditions do not represent processing, but rather a form of punishment that compounds existing trauma and teaches them that safety is unpredictable. The psychological impact extends to mothers who suffer a moral injury from being unable to protect their children despite being physically present. This enforced helplessness destabilizes the family bond at the very moment safety is most needed. As a social worker, McCormick believes that the ethical priority should be to reduce harm, yet the policies of Trump and Texas intentionally compound harm. These damaging effects are foreseeable and avoidable, particularly in a state like Texas that frequently emphasizes, again, the importance of protecting families. Detention is a choice, not a necessity. If Texas is to uphold its stated values regarding the protection of the vulnerable, it must move away from policies that rely on the suffering of mothers and children to function. In two parts of Texas, it's time to vote. Early voting continues for one more day today in Houston's Congressional District 18. Polls will be open today, this Thursday, and also in Tarrant County State Senate District 9, where early voting has wrapped up. In Houston's CD18, which has gone without representation in the U.S. House since the death of Congressman Sylvester Turner in March of 2025, a choice between Democrats Amanda Edwards and Christian Menifee. Gabby Birnbaum has a fresh look on the CD18 race up for the Texas Tribune. She notes that the runoff concludes the race for the remainder of the late Sheila Jackson Lee's term, but a new battle for a full 2-year term begins immediately. Both Edwards and Menifee will also be on the March primary ballot under redrawn district lines, where they'll be listed alongside veteran Congressman Al Green and a fourth challenger. Because of the Donald Trump ordered and Greg Abbott delivered mid-decade redistricting of the Texas congressional map, only about a quarter of the current CD18 remains, which means the winner of the runoff will have just 2 weeks of incumbency before asking a largely different electorate for their support. For residents of CD18, this election will finally end 18 months without a long-term representative and restore essential constituent services. The CD18 vacancy has been of monumental national consequence in the narrowly divided House, where Republicans currently hold a slim 218 to 213 majority. Recent GOP victories, including the passage of DHS funding, including billions more for ICE, and the rejection of a Venezuela-related war powers resolution that would have curtailed Donald Trump's military adventures in South America, both passed by a single vote, while CD18 has been voiceless. Seating a new Democrat will create a 216 to 216 split if 2 Republicans defect, effectively blocking legislation in a chamber with no tie-breaking mechanism. Up in Tarrant County in State Senate District 9, veteran union leader and Democrat Taylor Ramett faces MAGA darling and Patriot Mobile technocrat Lee Wamsgans to fill a vacant state Senate seat held for decades by Republicans. A major flip opportunity. J. David Goodman at the New York Times writes on how that special election runoff in the Fort Worth suburbs has become a high-stakes battleground. Ramett, as we've talked about, surprised just about everybody by securing 47% of the vote back in November within a district that favored Donald Trump by 17 points just the prior year in 2024. Backers of Lee Wamsgans are in a panic, including heavy hitters like Governor Greg Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who have both been active in attempts to mobilize a local GOP base potentially asleep at the wheel. Dan Patrick, in particular, has lately been on conservative talk radio, quite literally begging MAGA voters in Tarrant County to show up on Saturday. Central to this race is a shift in suburban sentiment following years of intense social conservative control over local school boards. Resistance against book bans and partisan school board policies has been building, and Taylor Ramett has noticed, easily linking Wamsgans to controversial school board fights she helped pick. Much like CD18 in Houston, the honeymoon for the SD9 winner will end quickly, as they'll only serve through the end of a year with no active legislative session. Again, here, both candidates will meet again in November. For Republicans, the close nature of the SD9 race in a traditionally red stronghold serves as a warning sign for their midterm prospects in the DFW suburbs and beyond. Again, Election Day for both of those special election runoffs is Saturday. This Saturday, January 31st. A special election runoff in a midterm year affected by bad weather is likely to see low turnout. That means your vote carries massive weight. Get out there and get it done. For the rest of us, the March primary looms. Now's the time to confirm your registration. Deadline on that is this Monday, February 2nd, and early voting in the March primary will start on February 17th. See the show notes for Texas 2026 March primary ballot form from the Texas Tribune you can use right now with your home address to see who will be on the ballot in the primary in which you choose to vote. Everything you need to be sure your registration's in order can be found at our website, govotexas.org. Once again, if you're planning to vote by mail, note that the U.S. Postal Service has sent out recent guidelines making it clear that they may not postmark a piece of mail on the same day it's been dropped off to them. The later you wait to send in your mail-in ballot, the more likely it is to arrive late and be rejected. If you're voting by mail, you want to get that done as soon as you can. See also in the show notes this morning new rundowns on voter registration from both the Austin Chronicle and KUT News in Austin. Our mission to Progress Texas is to improve and save Texans' lives by acting on our shared bold progressive values, and that starts with countering the billionaire and corporate-funded disinformation machine. While we enjoy the support of hundreds of partners, chances are that you, dear listener, haven't joined the team yet. If you're a regular, let's get you on board right now. Thanks huge to Kimberly Gerlich, Pam Rickle, and Diana Offord. We appreciate all of you very much. Join them and the team at ProgressTexas.org. While you're at the website, hit our web store, live and ready for you now to grab some newly released Humans Against Abbott, Y'all Means All, and Revolution shirts, stickers, and buttons. Hit the web store at ProgressTexas.org to support your favorite podcast network today. That's the Progress Texas Daily Dispatch for this Thursday, January 29th, 2026. Links to all these original stories can be found in our show notes. Progress Texas is an independent, nonprofit, rapid response media organization. While campaigns come and go, we're the permanent home for progressive media in action in the Lone Star State. I'm Chris Mosier. Thanks so much for listening. Have a terrific day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.